the return of College Football 25 from EA Sports. Got a little bit of news yesterday pertaining to what that cover could look like. We'll unpack what we know. We'll unpack some of my assumptions, and we'll also take a guess at who's going to be on that cover. We'll talk about it right now, but make sure you're subscribed. Okay, you're a college football sicko. You're watching a video in a one-off capacity about College Football 25, the video game, if you're watching this on YouTube. But if you're tuning into the live show, we appreciate you. Make sure you're subscribed because we're live Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, so dial in with us. If you're watching on podcast or listening on podcast, rather, we appreciate you too, man, being dialed in when you can make time to do it. So rate us, review us, all that good stuff. Subscribe to the feed and tell a friend about us while you're at it. So if you're wondering why we're talking about this right now, why we have an update, Matt Brown from Extra Points gave us some news yesterday. He has reported and had confirmed that there will be multiple versions of the College Football 25 cover. Now, he said this in his newsletter over at extrapoints.com, I believe, and then he also went on Paul Feinbaum's show yesterday and confirmed as much. Sounds like he knows who they're going to be, so we're going to try and get Matt Brown on this show as soon as possible. We're going to reach out to him and see what we can get done there. Don't think he's going to tell us who's actually on the cover, but he dropped a couple of Easter eggs. Here's what we know. All right, here's what we know. Multiple versions of the cover, as I mentioned. It will be an active and starting college football player from a power conference. So if you wanted to play with Caden Salter from Liberty, that's fine, but he's just not going to be on the cover for you. Also, not going to be Nick Saban. To me, that felt like the most layup way to go about it. If you just wanted to go with getting an all-encompassing one cover kind of way to go about it, but still, I appreciate that we're getting players that are actually in the game on the cover. This is interesting. All of these cover athletes are different positions. So meaning you're not going to get a Quinn Ewers and a Shedeur Sanders. You're not going to get a Carson Beck and a Jackson Dart. They're all different players from different positions from different conferences. So you're not going to have two quarterbacks from the SEC is the way that I interpreted that. Matt Brown also mentioned, and he tweeted this out saying, I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but he thinks that there is one of those athletes that is going to be a surprise. He was surprised when he saw it. I'm assuming we'll be surprised as we see it as a college football public, but nonetheless, that's what we know right now. Now, when it comes to assumptions, tentatively, I believe July 19th is the release date everyone has circled. I am assuming that all these players on the cover are going to be draft eligible. I just have a hard time seeing them throw a Dylan Raiola on the cover when he hasn't played a game yet, or throwing a Caleb Downs on the cover when he still isn't draft eligible and he has another year to go about it in the college ranks. Could be, but that's the way that I'm approaching it. I'm also assuming that the guys on the cover here are not going to be transfer portal players at new destinations. Just a feel thing for me. I don't really have a ton of analysis behind that besides that's the way that it feels. I don't think you'll see Cam Ward from Miami. It's not something we've seen on Saturdays just yet, so why would it be on our cover? You catch my drift there? So who's going to be on the cover? Let's take our guess here. It could be 3 different covers. I'm going to just go ahead and say there's 4 different covers, Big 12, ACC, SEC, and Big 10. If you left one of those conferences out, it would be a tremendous slight to an entire portion of the college football public. So I think probably going with 4 covers is a good way to go about it. From the Big 12, I think it's got to be Travis Hunter. So that probably checks the wide receiver box and the corner box if you're counting positions and where they can go about it. Massive brand, one of the most massive brands in college football from Travis Hunter and Colorado alike. From the Big 12, I think it's got to be Travis Hunter. I feel really good about that. It could be Shedeur Sanders, but I think they're probably saving the quarterback position for one of these other conferences. And if you got Travis Hunter on the board with how massively known he is, I think he's one of your guys for the cover. So we'll go ahead and cast our prediction for him to be the cover for the Big 12. For the SEC, win a lot of, I kind of went back and forth on this. Carson Beck makes a lot of sense, man. I think that with the SEC being the most visible conference in college football, you probably burn your quarterback card here. Carson Beck makes a lot of sense. But I think Quinn Ewers as a personal brand maybe has a little bit more behind him. And then also the brand that Texas football is. I'm not saying it's superior to Georgia, but I think the trend that Texas is on right now, moving to the SEC, they just made the college football playoff. Like, people are excited about Texas right now, whereas Georgia has just been a mainstay as one of the elites of the elite in college football for a while now. I could see EA saying we're going with Quinn Ewers. We're going to have him as our cover athlete for the SEC. And maybe them moving to the SEC also provides a little extra juice, a little extra momentum to putting him on the cover. I could see that being, the way they would go about it. But again, Carson Beck, I think, is absolutely possible, and I see all the reasons in the world if you were to put him on the cover. The Big Ten is tricky, man, because if you're counting now, we've got quarterback off the board. We've also gone, depending on how you look at it, we haven't had a defensive player just yet if we're trying to figure out how this all shapes up. The Big Ten and the ACC is the most tricky. The Big Ten, Ohio State would make a lot of sense. Massive brand. The thing with this, though, what I said at the top of this, how I don't think a transfer portal player will be on the cover, and it has to be a draft-eligible player on the cover. That removes the Caleb Downs from contention here. It removes Will Howard. He's a transfer portal player. It removes a Quinshon Judkins. He's a transfer portal player. I just think with Michigan winning the national championship last year, and you not putting someone from their team on the cover, I don't buy that. And Michigan, their identity has been running the football. Donovan Edwards made a pretty big national impact, I think, from his national championship performance. He's going to be RB1 in Michigan. I think he's your cover athlete for the Big Ten. I really do. The Michigan brand is massive. I don't see a way that you leave them off the cover with them having just won the Big Ten. Now, the ACC is the hardest to predict because there's no quarterback on the board. I'm going to go ahead and say there's no wide receiver or corner on the board with Travis Hunter. We'll say he wipes out 2 positions. No running back on the board. You got to get some big boys on the cover somehow, some way, right? It's got to happen. It's tough with the ACC because all those quarterbacks are transfers. So even if we hadn't burned our quarterback card, DJU, are we really throwing him on the cover with him never playing a down at Florida State? Cam Ward, are we really putting him on the cover with never playing a down at Miami? I have a hard time getting behind that. So we'll say they go defense. We'll say they go defensive line. I'm saying this is my surprise pick, all right? This is the surprise that I'm saying Matt Brown is alluding to. I'm saying Patrick Payton from Florida State, the edge defender, ends up on the cover for the ACC representative. He's going to have a massive year this year. His stock is already through the roof when it comes to what he's going to be in 2024. Florida State and their stock is through the roof, with them being nationally a contender year in and year out, as long as Mike Norvell is there now with the last 2 seasons, what they put together. I think he is the pick for the ACC. Again, that's my surprise pick. By nature of how we're putting this thing together and the options we have, I think Patrick Payton would make a lot of sense for the ACC. Now, the alternate plot for the surprise, let's just say my assumptions are wrong. I could see them going like Missouri's Luther Burden at wide receiver for Missouri. So that means that you counted Travis Hunter as like an athlete or a corner, so you didn't use your wide receiver chip. And then for the ACC, let's say that they were going to go with portal guys. Cam Ward from Miami would make a lot of sense if they were going to throw a portal player on there. So we'll see. Let me know in the comment section who you think is going to be on the cover here. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.